Today's January 19th. The Dodgers are causing a ruckus, signing everyone. That's all right, though. The Pirates are having PiratesFest back home. I guess they sweeten the roster with some Shugart. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins guys, thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and tonight I'm joined by Doug, or Dougie Fresh as some call you. What's up, Doug?
Yes, haven't felt fresh in an awfully long time, but yeah, that's what I get called.
Jake's working late. I asked Doug to come and sit in for him tonight. We were kind of overdue for a conversation, Doug.
Yes. One of my great joys. I love talking Pirates ball with you, Josh. You have one of the unique perspectives in our little podcast Pirate universe, and I always enjoy it. So I'm excited to be here. We have a lot to talk about, maybe nothing to talk about. I'm not sure. The Pirates off season, we will somehow be able to talk a lot about nothing. So
yeah.
And we will be using all the available H's tonight.
Yeah. McCutson. Yeah, the Pirates can't really. I've said this before. The Pirates can't really afford anything like that to happen to them when it comes to making mistakes and getting publicity for just little things that probably a lot of people just look over. And I thought it was cool that Andrew McCutchen had some fun with that.
Right. He's so great. He is such a great ambassador for this team. He's better than that team deserves, better than that management deserves. Yeah, it's embarrassing. Right. If the Dodgers left the H out of Ohtani, it would never matter because they're doing everything else right. But we can't. We're not doing everything else right. So, and it's so funny. For a team that needs the best PR in the world, has the worst. That we're terrible. We can't get a message out. We can't, the simplest things. And lucky we've got guys like Andrew McCutchen who will have some fun with it. And he's just so great. We're so lucky to have him.
Yeah, and I think just like most things, right? When something little like that happens. Like you saw, like that wasn't a big deal. And McCutchen made it just the same. Like, let's have fun with it. It's not a big deal. But like the fan base, the comments, they just pile it on. You know what I mean? And that's why I say they can't afford it. And it's the same sort of thing. Right. It's we like to pile it on. And I don't know whether that's fair or not.
You said it best when you said we can't afford it, because the jokes become things like, oh, they couldn't afford the H. They couldn't afford a placard big enough to fit his whole. You know what I'm saying? Yep. The jokes write themselves in these situations. And the Pirates need to do as much as they can to not embarrass themselves, and have not been successful in that in quite some time. Right. It's a nothing thing. It doesn't matter at all, but we're looking for something. We are ready to pounce, and you threw us fresh meat. And again, in this social media world where people are just looking, to jump on every little thing, it's something. Nothing becomes something. The molehill becomes a mountain, and it's all over just a little, oversight typo.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, on the onset of this thing, I mean, we're going to get into some Pirates Fest stuff and some comments that were made and things like that. And then, like I told Doug before we're getting started here, we don't know where we're necessarily going to go when it comes to the conversation. We're going to allow this thing to breathe a little bit. But speaking of a mountain out of a molehill, the Dodgers, what they were doing this offseason did kind of feel like a molehill. It did feel like there were some complaints early on, and it was like, dude, you just wish your team was trying. I think we might be getting to a point where it might be getting a little ridiculous. And like I said, I'm not going to blame the Dodgers in this case, because as of right now, they're not doing anything wrong.
Nope, they're doing everything within the rules.
Yeah. I think a bit of, well, first off, when you talk about the amount of deferred money, the Tanner Scott deal, they just signed Tanner Scott. There's 20 some million of deferred money in that as well. There's the signing bonus. Like, that's just smart. So he doesn't have to pay so much taxes. But like all the things that go into that amount of deferred money, with every contract that you defer, you have to have a bank account that has that amount of money in it and say, look, I'm good for it. So every year that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you have to continue to show all of this money is in an account, gaining interest, blah, 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 blah. There is no other team in Major League Baseball that could accomplish what they're doing. So while you say, yeah, I wish my team was trying, they can't do that. And I know there's a lot of people who think anybody can defer money. You're right, but not that much, because you have to prove you have that money in order to defer that money. And only the Dodgers have that money. The amount that they've gone to now.
The Pirates could not do that, right?
No,
they couldn't do it for one. If Ohtani could say, "Man, I really want to come to Pittsburgh. I'll play for $2 million a year, defer $28 million or $48 million every year. Yeah, and I'll come. I'll sign." And they could not put $48 million a year for 10 years in an account and say, "Look, we have this here." They couldn't do it. Right.
Some of them they could have, right? They could have done one or two of those, and some of those with a little bit less deferred money, they could have done it. I think the Reds, they just finished paying Ken Griffey Jr. this year, or 23 or 24, and it was like paying him like $1.5 or $2 million every summer, and it was like, yeah, they could have done that, but not to the amount.
Could have done a Bobby Bonilla. Right?
Jeez, we're talking. Yeah, well, glad we didn't. Glad we didn't. But like the thing is, the money that they're talking about it's otherworldly. It's when the Pirates are thinking about it, like, oh yeah, let me show you a bank account with with $1 billion in it, essentially. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm one of those, and I've tweeted this out before, and I've said it many times. The Pirates' biggest problem is that payroll is not our biggest problem. We haven't got to that point yet. It should be, but our problem is drafting, development, scouting, all those other things. We don't have those things right yet. So I've never really been bothered by what the other teams are doing, because we're not even approaching being able to, complain and say, gosh, if we could just spend more money. Because I think this organization would spend money badly. I don't think they'd make the best decisions. I don't have confidence in them. Now, again, when you're spending more money, your mistakes have a much higher floor. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is starting to seem to get out of hand, right? That the Dodgers are doing stuff that the Yankees and Red Sox and Braves and Phillies cannot do. Things are getting a little weird now. Yeah. And a lot of people, a lot of people will say, God, I want the Dodgers and Yankees to be in the World Series every year, so people will realize that this is the problem, and these other. I don't think that bothers Major League Baseball. Is not going to be mad if the Dodgers and Yankees are in the World Series every year. That's their dream scenario. I think the only thing they might prefer over that would be Red Sox Cubs. So you could have the two ballparks to go along with and the history and all that stuff, and the long stretch, the 100 years of losing prior to their World Series, that sort of thing. But beyond that, Dodgers and Yankees is their probably dream scenario. They don't want Pittsburgh, Sacramento World Series. They don't want a Pittsburgh, Kansas City. They don't want Milwaukee White Sox. They don't,
No.
So yeah, so it's hard to say that, that's going to change things around and make baseball, implement a salary cap. So I don't know if what the Dodgers are going to doing is going to affect any change that'll positively impact the Pirates, but it does seem out of hand, and it does seem. I don't like using the word unfair. Sports aren't supposed to be fair. If you're smarter and you're better and you do all the things better, you're supposed to win. That's not fair. This isn't orange slices. This isn't youth soccer. It is a competition, but.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that I think this will bring change, and I think one of the front runners of that will be the Yankees. If the Yankees can't be the bully, and they realize that there's things happening that they can't do, I think they'll be the first one at the step to want change. And it's already starting to sound like that. However, I think the salary cap argument might just be a different story. I think what's going to change is the amount of deferred money, or the way that they calculate the tax threshold at this point, which I don't know even how far that's going to go. But you understand, like, Ohtani's $70 million annually if you just say, well, he signed for $700 million. The problem is he's not, because there's escrow and there's interest and there's value. He essentially signed, I think it's like $460 million of today's value money. And so they're only on the hook for that. They're on the hook for either I think it might be like $46 million a year when it comes to the tax numbers. And so, and it's just because that's today's value. And then the escrow earns it up to 68 or whatever it is. Right. And so I think that is the thing. Like, no, they should just be on the hook for 70. You know what I mean? They should just be on the hook for 70 and then see where that goes. But I don't know. I think so Ethan says, come on, the Yankees could be doing whatever they want. I actually agree with that. Right. They could be, they could. I don't think they could defer the same amount of money the Dodgers are right now. Like, Guggenheim has more money in bank accounts, and the things that they have, they've got more money, flat out. But, but the Yankees are losing out on free agents to the Dodgers, and they're mad about it. And that's why they'll do it. They're going to be the sore loser in this scenario.
Nobody needs to start a GoFundMe for the Yankees.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That's not what I'm saying.
They're a team that MLB, they're a team that MLB will listen to.
Yeah.
Right. They're a team that can bring a national attention to the problem. If they start feeding Jeff Passan and Buster Olney, this kind of stuff, that'll want to get it out. Right. I mean, right now, Buster Olney is talking about how smart the Dodgers are, and how, if they're not smart. They are smart, but
that's the problem. I think that's the biggest problem with all this, is that they are smart. They develop well. Right. They scout well. Yeah. They've created Max Muncy and Justin Turner out of scrap heap, like that. That whole dumpster diving comment that Pirates fans make all the time, like. Though that was Justin Turner and Max Muncy. They dumpster dove for those guys.
They do it all the time. They draft after us, and they develop, consistent rookies of the year and consistent above average players. And, we get Brian De La Cruz. The Dodgers wouldn't have traded for Brian De La Cruz.
Right.
They wouldn't have made that mistake.
Right.
And that's where I say, like, our problems are so much greater than payroll right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't. For me, until the television stuff all gets wrapped up, it looks at some point, maybe in the next decade, that all the television will become equal. Then it'll be interesting. Then it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. Right now, if the Pirates are getting as much money from TV as the Dodgers and the Yankees are, they have to spend it, right? And I don't care.
And that's where you
what
can
you want to call it,
right.
Floors and ceilings and all that stuff, but. They're not, again, if they're getting equal television money, the Dodgers and Yankees aren't also going to want to write them, a competitive balance check or something along those lines.
Right. So, but once you get central revenue, once you get all the TV deals and the broadcast stuff into one place, that's when you can start talking about salary cap. Prior to that, it's not going to happen. I mean, without central revenue, you can't do what other sports are doing. So as far as salary cap goes, and the biggest thing about that is once everybody's getting the same cut, now what it is you have to separate the top from the bottom by this much. And that's when you can put in a true cap system, and the money still goes to the players. Matter of fact, probably more money goes to the players. If you look at the percentage of revenue versus how much the players are making, I think it's higher in the other leagues than it is in baseball, even though we have bigger, like single contracts and everything. So I think there will be changes. I don't think it's a salary cap. And I don't even think when you say like it won't impact the Pirates, I think on a certain level, it won't touch the Pirates, any changes that make. However, right now the super team exists And I can't imagine if the Pirates have some magical season and they end up in the championship series and they have to face the Dodgers. Like, it's hard to imagine you have a chance. And if they had
everything goes right for the Pirates, right, and they have to play the Dodgers in the playoffs, people will say the Dodgers are going to win this in 2 games when it's a 7-game series.
Right. You would have to repeat
the beating will be so bad.
You would have to repeat the 1960 World Series where you were outscored by 20 some and ended up beating them in 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It'd be one of those the 1990 where the Reds swept the A's, and the A's were so heavily favored.
Yeah.
But it was, you got Jose Rio, I think, won 2 of the games, and Eric Davis went super. The Pirates would need Paul Skenes to pitch. He would have to Madison Bumgarner his way through that thing. and O'Neill Cruz would have to play peak Mickey Mantle. And that still probably wouldn't be enough. Right. And the Dodgers would be rolling out bullpen games and still be.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. Dave White says their prospects are blocked now. But that's the beauty of it, because now if I have an injury, I don't even have to bring up a prospect. I can trade those prospects and bring in a Mookie Betts and then extend Mookie Betts. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing.
The
you
Dodgers
can avoid
have been doing that for 100 years. I remember watching them in the 70s, and they had the same infield for 8 straight years. It was Ron Say, Bill Russell, Davey Lopes, and Steve Garvey. And they would play these first basemen. They would develop these guys. They would play for 2 or 3 years at AAA, and they would be crushing it. They're playing in Albuquerque, so they're getting good numbers anyway. And it's their second, third season, and then they would trade them, and they would trade them, and they would be average. But they look so good because they were at that level so long. Teams are a little more sophisticated now, don't see that stuff as much. But back then it was like, oh, you just got. God, I can't even remember some of their names, but they had 2 first basemen in particular that, one got traded to the Brewers, I think. I can't remember. But they would have those prospects there, and they would just be able to build them up. Baseball America talk about them. Sporting News would talk about them, all that sort of stuff. And there was no chance that they were going to play because Steve Garvey played every game, right? And Davey Lopes played every game. So, right, everything is working, and they do draft well,
Mm-hmm.
If we make a trade with the Dodgers, I have more faith in their prospects than I do ours.
Right.
So it's like, of course, I would think that they will outsmart us, and they'll give us somebody that can't play, and we'll give them someone who can.
Right. Right now, the top of the league is the Dodgers. In the last 2 off seasons, the top of the league is the Dodgers. And I think the change that we'll see, as OG puts out here, you can imagine more restrictive escrow requirements. But, other big markets feel that they're threatened, but little else changing. But that's what it'll be. Those top players will be dispersed. Like right now, you thought that the Yankees and the Mets were going to be involved in everything. And other than Soto, they just haven't been. And then outside of money, you even have Roki Sasaki end up in the Dodgers, which I thought was a pretty crappy thing from the very beginning. Like, it sounded like, oh, we were going to be interested in not just going to the Dodgers, but anybody. But it kind of made me feel like, no, you lied. We were going to the Dodgers the whole time. There was no reason to drag the rest of MLB along in that. If you would have just said, no, I want to go to the Dodgers, then this thing would have been done.
Yeah.
So,
I don't almost wonder if the Dodgers are like slow walking some of that stuff. So they don't do it all on the first day of the offseason, and just they can try to mitigate it by spreading it out over. Maybe we'll forget that they, signed Sasaki because they now signed who's the closer they just
Tanner
signed?
Scott.
Tanner Scott. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. They just keep, every breaking news is Dodgers and somebody.
Yeah. And if you think the Yankees get one of those guys, Boston, who's in on a lot of them, the Blue Jays, who seem to be second in everything, the Padres, who almost got Tanner Scott back, and the Giants could have gotten, like, if you could have dispersed that, I know they're still the top level teams, but at least there's several of them that could have been involved in any of these players. And instead it's just like, no, the Dodgers are just getting them all. And that just kind of sucks. But all in all, like I said, it's kind of hard. They're not doing anything crazy within, like, outside of the rules. The only thing I will say is I think they know change is coming, and I think that's why they're going so far down this path. I just think it's pretty. they're going to do it all now because if there is change, there's no way they're going to make them they're not going to cancel those contracts. They're not going to start making them
grandfathered in.
Everything will be grandfathered in. We'll have this thing going for the next 10 years and we'll be fine. And then it'll change. Whoever gets the Dodgers next is the one that's going to pay for all this stuff.
Right.
So Bucko Mike puts Cubs offered 4 for $66 for Scott, and he ended up going for 72. And it's deferred money, 21 million deferred, 20 million signing. It's something like that. Ethan's out there probably be like, no, it's 21 and 20 the other way around. Whatever it is. I looked this stuff up, Ethan. I just don't remember it as well as you. And I certainly don't understand it near as well as you do. So we appreciate Ethan.
Well, we need Ethan.
We need him. So yeah, all in all though, I think that
Ethan should have a job with the Pirates. That's my thoughts. He should be working for the Pirates.
Could be working for someone better than that. Not even like I say that to say like not even just one team. He could be. Yeah. He could get a job anywhere. I'm convinced. So
absolutely.
So yeah, I think what will be fun is who will take down the Dodgers, and that's what the season will be about. And do they win the World Series next year? I would almost bet against it because I feel like it'd be an easier bet to win. Your odds would actually be in your favor.
Right. All right. I mean, you're not going to get good value betting on the Dodgers to win, right? You'd be much better taking a team, like the Padres, the Giants, somebody like that, Arizona, whatever, that, that the odds will pay off because Vegas is clearly, thinks the Dodgers clearly are the favorite.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to put up more, what are you're going to get bet 100 to get 120? That's not a great for a long-term, thing like that. That's not a great payout. I bet $10 to win 200 on Skenes to win Rookie of the Year. That's the kind of bet you want to make when you're doing futures, right? You want something that pays off. So,
yeah. Ethan says Murray's the only one to report that yet, but we need to know the actual schedule. So I think that's he's speaking to the deferred and signing bonus or whatever. It's smart what they're doing with the signing bonuses because they're still on the hook for those as far as the numbers go, but they get paid now, so they don't have to pay California taxes.
Oh.
So the signing bonuses are good for the player.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they're doing. They do everything, very smartly, works. I mean, again, the players are going there for a reason. They're getting the money spread out in a way that benefits them, but also benefits the Dodgers. So,
right. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I think the biggest thing for me is the players. I understand it's the most money and whatever else, but like what the Dodgers are doing is just, I mean, they're doing everything they can. And we've said all that, but like the players are like, there's been a couple players to pass up more money. Roki, one of them, he could have got more money somewhere else. I mean, I know that that's a much different amount of money that he could be working with, but I don't know. I just feel like there's some of these guys that are just like, well, I get a ring here. And it does feel a little bit cheap, not cheat, but cheap. And I think the Dodgers are gaming the system. And again, I don't mean cheating the system, but they're playing a game and they're winning at it. At least,
I mean, they're playing it better than anybody else plays it, but they're definitely gaming the system.
Yeah.
100% within the rules, but perhaps not the spirit of the, of the rules. And,
and I think some of these rules.
I wish we were having this conversation about the Pirates. I sure wish that we were saying, God,
yeah.
I almost don't want to watch this season. The Pirates are going to be so boring because they win so often.
Yeah, I wonder if there were Yankees fans. I heard this question asked. I think on the 3-0 Take podcast, I heard this question asked. One of them is a Yankees fan. Do you think Yankees fans, back when they were considered to be the ones buying everybody, do you think they ever felt like, man, this isn't fair? But I gotta think the Dodgers fans right now are thinking like there's a little bit of this like this kind of isn't fair. What's about to happen in 2025?
Well, I don't know. Fans have those blinders on. I was living, in the Northeast. I listened to a lot of sports radio back then. I got a lot of the Fan. I was living in Boston, but I could get the Fan, and they didn't seem unhappy. They would just, hey, your team can do it too. Your own. This is back when George Steinbrenner was just throwing, and this was before their great run there in the mid to late '90s. This is back in the days of spending money on Dave Winfield and those sort of guys when they weren't winning. They weren't winning World Series. But the fans, they weren't upset that they got Winfield and then Ricky Henderson and that sort of thing. They're like, keep it coming. They just wanted to win. They really wanted to beat the Red Sox, and they that sort of stuff. And they were winning, and well, especially when they were spending the money and not winning. Like, hey, look, we're spending all the money, but Don Mattingly, I don't think ever made the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something there. I think there's something there to just say, like, I don't think that it ever felt unfair. And I think there is a chance that the Dodgers right now, it does feel unfair. Like that lineup and that rotation. I mean, they've got eight guys as good as, you know what I mean? Now the bullpen and everything, and it does seem unfair. But it's baseball, and you don't win in the off season. You win in the regular season, in the postseason. Not that I think they'll have much trouble doing that, but they still have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it still has to happen. All we've seen, I mean, time and time again, we've seen the team with the highest payroll not win.
Right.
It's not an uncommon thing that happens. Now, again, this is getting more extreme. But that we've watched the Dodgers loaded with pitching the past couple of years, and they're throughout the playoffs they're running bullpen games. So you can kind of see why they're signing all these guys. They never seem to have enough pitching. They have more pitching than anybody else, but it doesn't seem to be enough. So yeah, I mean, again, an injury here or there, it could all change real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some other good teams out there. There's some teams that have some really good starting pitchings that could give them, it really, starting pitching can make such a huge difference. I would love to see Paul Skenes go against anybody, in a playoff series, right? I would not be afraid of him in any. Now, you worry about what our bullpen could do, or you worry about what our lineup, like you get the feeling that Paul Skenes could lose a lot of 1-0 games, but I'd feel good about him pitching any game against anybody.
Right.
You could put him against the All-Star team. Like, he's good. The kid is that good. He's that special.
Yeah. So let's get into some of the Pirates stuff, because Paul Skenes had some things to say at PiratesFest, and I don't know. Like, I think some of it's at least interesting enough to talk about. So we'll start with him. According to No Hiles on Twitter, he's ready to go 240 innings. I think we might have lost Doug. You still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Let me check. Let me reload this. Might have something to see if we can get that video back. There we go. We got it.
There we go.
All right. You did have some internet problems today,
anyway.
but I think we're good. We got it. We're back. So anyway, 240 innings, he said, I'm ready to throw. I mean, he also said, like, it's not going to happen, but I'm ready to go for 240 innings. It's not going to be 160. What do you think? What do you think about this comment? Like, obviously, I think the one thing that he said that I liked was, like, you don't want to be built up for 160 and go 185, but build up for 240, and I think he said, and then we'll see where we land, or something like that. So, like,
how can you not love this kid?
Yeah.
I mean, he is the perfect face of an organization, right? He wants to win. He's measured in what he says. He's not. I mean, he's confident but not arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And he's confident for a reason. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball already. He's a horse. He wants to pitch. He does not want to get pulled out. I think he knows that when he does get pulled out, that his game is now at risk. So I think he wants to go as deep in games as he can. I think he wants to win games. He said, also talking about, hey, we lost 10 games, probably more that we should have won. And he's right. And a lot, this last year, a lot of that was bullpen related. He left games at leads. He left games, that we just frittered away. And so I can understand why he wants to pitch. I mean, he wants to pitch as many because he is a pitcher. He's a baseball player, and he's a dude. And I love that he says it. I also love that he gets it. He knows that the Pirates will not let him throw 240 innings.
Yeah.
But he's like, I want to, right? I want to stay out there as long as I can. I want to make my turn. I don't want it to be once a week. I want it, all that sort of stuff. And right. I mean, this kid is special. And when you have his kind of talent and you develop it the way that he has, right, it's not just his talent it's his mentality, it's his will.
Mm-hmm.
It's and how can you not be excited about that? I wish Pirates management was excited about it as we were, and that they see what they have and say, man, we've got to get a team around this kid so we can get him into the playoffs and really watch him do something special.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe without going down the rabbit hole, there are times where I think they do have that team. I think they're so confident that those guys are here. I don't know. Anyway.
We talked about that earlier, right? I mean, It's obvious that they think like Cook, York, and they think they've got right field situated. They haven't let us know, and I don't think if they know exactly how it work out, but I think they have enough options there that someone will, come through, and it might take, a month or two of, giving it bats to guys that aren't worthy. But yeah, you're right. Otherwise, I mean, come on, they'd have somebody, yes, they weren't going to get.
I think they think they have maybe one side of it, right? They're like, oh, I'm confident that we can acquire one player that may not be that we could platoon with somebody that we have in house, or else why wouldn't you be looking at Santander or Jerks and Profar, right? You're looking at acquiring one half of a platoon in right field because you either think that you can get it from Billy Cook or from Palacios or Sawinski or something like that. So, yeah, I agree with that. And one of those things that you kind of alluded to was his other quote where he was talking about the games last year and the team that they have, and some of this may be like, yeah, hey, I like what we have here because that's what you're supposed to say. But instead, he gave like some examples and said there were more than 10 games that we just threw away on our own. That we didn't get beat. We blew it. And if that doesn't happen, if you play, I think he said, if you play fundamental and you play, and you play to not make your own, like to blow the games yourself, then all of a sudden this is a 10-game swing and you could be a better team. Do you buy that?
I mean, absolutely. The 10-game losing streak after the trade deadline. I think Holderman blew 3 saves and Bednar blew 3 saves.
Yeah.
That's 6 games right there from what was considered a strength of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I know people, talk about Bednar's bad season, but he had converted 19 saves in a row up to that point.
Yep.
I remember someone complaining, Shelton should have put him in there. What do you mean? He's converted 19 in a row. That's absolutely... that was the play. Yep. Holderman had an ERA of like 0.79. Those were the guys to put in. Now, when we're into the 7th and 8th game of the losing streak, maybe not. But at the beginning of it, those were the moves to make. And had those guys done what they had been doing, Right. We go 6-4 in that stretch instead of 0-10. Right. So yeah. And Skenes first start, he leaves with the lead and we walk. What was it? 6 in a row? I mean, I don't know. We walked the next 3 innings worth of, I mean, it was just crazy. And everyone we brought in just walked 3 guys.
And we ended up winning that game somehow. But
and we come back and won. But
I left early.
I don't blame you. I would have been disgusted after watching.
Well, the thing was, it was the weather and the rain, and it was like, I gotta get back, and it's a 3-hour drive for me. And then, so I made the decision to leave, and I was listening, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
So yeah, I mean, so now at the same token, they pulled out some wins they shouldn't have won. That's part of baseball. But yeah, this team. I mean, remember we talked about, God, they're inventing ways to snatch, defeat out of the jaws of victory. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of weird losses, a lot of stuff that they should have won. And right, again, one of the many things the Pirates are not doing right, they're not fundamentally sound. Remember how many times we had second and third with nobody out and didn't score?
Back-to-back strikeouts.
I mean, so if they could clean up if we could clean up some of this junk, if Ben believed that we need defensive skill at somewhere other than catcher, so maybe we're putting out our best defensive lineup some of the time. Mm-hmm. It's funny, people say the bat will play. Well, we don't have bats that play, but we still put bad defensive players out there and their bat doesn't play. So, I mean, God, I wish Triello could hit. I hope Matt Haig can work magic with him, because man, it'd be nice to have him out there every day, as good as defensively he is.
Yeah. Wish Hayes could stay healthy.
And then Hayes could stay healthy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this, we're so frustrated with this team. They're a last place team so often, but 76 wins, right? And if you just 6 more, if you just didn't blow 6 of those games that you had leads, you're 82-80. I mean, I think we'd at least said that was progress,
right?
I don't want to do the non-losing season parade. We have enough of those at the end of football season. But
it's worth it to say though that even in that, you're saying, as bad as you might think this rebuild has gone as a fan, whoever, whatever you're listening to, as bad as you think, the one thing that has been good that has been true until last year was every year was an improvement, be it small or not, be it not any long-term players or not. It was getting better every year. Each year there was some sort of stepping stone. The first 3 to 4 years, I don't even care about the very minute wins or loss total.
60 to 62 to 76 to 76.
That doesn't matter. But what you saw was, there's a guy who might be in the picture making his debut. Oh, there's a guy who might be in the picture that we can think we can build something around. Oh, you start to discover players. So that's the part of a rebuild that you lock onto, not wins and losses. Just because if you're doing a true rebuild, it sucks, but it's reality that they're just not going to be a good team. They're going to be, at the bottom of the barrel, but you hope to start seeing individual players kind of break out and do something, or some good decisions from a manager, which I don't think we got to see during those years, that maybe would have been like, yeah, but if he gets a good team, he might be a good manager. I think there's still a lot of questions about that. Fair questions about that. But at the same time, last year you expected to see that, all right, this is the year that we actually have a chance. And let's be real, 23 probably shouldn't have been 60 or 76 wins. Without that April, that team probably wasn't good enough to win 76 games. You know what I mean? And then,
I mean, I agree with that, but I also think that the year that they went from 60 to 62, they probably should have went from 60 to 69 or 70. So that the 76 sort of balanced, So then if they go from 70 to 76, that makes more sense.
It's like,
but your point is valid, but like I said, by the time they got to 76 wins the first time, that seemed to be the pace they should have been on.
Sure.
But you're right, 20-8 start certainly,
right.
Got them there. Right. They got there by just a real fluke streak. Because my goodness, after that they couldn't score a run or win a game for 2 months. So
right. So I don't know. That's part of that. So my second part of this is that I thought was really interesting about that is if there were, let's just say he said more than 10 games. I'm looking at it now. There was more than 10 games last year. I know that. You look at teams like the Dodgers, the Tigers, the Guardians, the Yankees, the Brewers, teams like that were in the playoffs and we were watching them from because we threw those games away. We're going to have opportunities to win. We have to take advantage of it. So like the idea is he's saying like, this is where things can change is, we have those opportunities that we blew last year and now we need to make it better. And the more I thought about that, the more I was like, okay, so what's different? You have the same manager. You've essentially got the same bullpen. You've got somewhat of the same rotation. I mean, I know Luis Ortiz is gone, but somewhat of the same rotation. You've got most of the same guys on offense right now. You got Horwitz, right? And some, like, I guess IKF, although he was still there last year. You haven't even gotten a different right fielder yet. So while you can say, well, there were 10 games, let's just say 10. There were 10 games that you blew last year. How are you going to do that different this year if you're fielding the same team? You might be able to cut that in half, but the players are the players, right? Or is there, I mean, there's also there's also growth and things like that, but what is different and what changes that you can maybe win 10 of those?
And for all the growth there's also regression, right? It's like
Jack Sawinski 2024.
Some guys will be better. Right. Some guys will be better next year, but some guys won't. That's the problem when you're going in there thinking, all right, we've got 8 guys who need to get better. 2 of them will get better, 2 of them will get hurt, 2 of them will get worse, and 2 of them will stay the same. I mean, that's kind of how that stuff works out. What I kind of find interesting about this for me is that, and he alluded to this a little bit about, leadership. I think he's going to start holding people accountable, right? I think he's going to develop into a real leader. And I think he's going to be able to because he is the best player on the team. And I just wonder now, again, there's a lot of things you could, if Brian Hayes has a healthy season, and we're back to that, if he could just be slightly above average or just average with his defense, okay, that's a good thing. And we didn't have him much of this year.
Well worth that contract, which isn't huge.
Right. Yeah, bargain. Gonzalez, he's improved a little over, each year since he's come up originally. So maybe with a better hitting coach, maybe he can get just slightly above average. I'm not talking all-star. I'm just saying not being an automatic out. I mean, he certainly was good with runners in scoring position. He makes contact. We saw O'Neal Cruz get better as the season went on. He cut down on strikeouts. He hit left-handed pitchers better. If he could do that, he really could be 30-30. He ran more in the second half. I mean, I think he sort of struggled with the ankle in the beginning. I think he was tentative, and I think as his confidence grew and he just felt better about the ankle and what he could do, he got better. And maybe part of it was moving to center field, take the pressure off, playing shortstop. So, I mean, there's, maybe Brett Strom can get to Mitch Keller and he has 4 good months instead of just 3. One more month of him being a top 5 pitcher, make a huge difference. That's 2-3 more wins right there in a month. I mean, so there's ways that and again, when you have the confidence that Paul Skenes has, right, I think it's easy to say, all right, look, I'm going to go out and pitch 200 innings and I'm going to win 20 games. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to by myself, win 6 or 7 more games than I did last year. So right. And now if we can get a little better from Mitch and a little better from Jared Jones and Bailey Falter maybe gets whomever, Bubba Chandler comes up or Harrington or Mike Burrows or on and on and on. So it's easy to see a path. we're so jaded, we're so broken, right? I mean, it's hard for us to think, oh yeah, Swinsky's going to be part of a platoon and he's going to play better, or Billy Cook, really can do it, or Nick York, Endy's going to come back, or Matt Haig is going to work magic with Henry Davis.
Henry Davis, yeah.
Right. I mean, like who we kind of have forgotten about, and with good reason. He's just not been able to hit at this level. Maybe Joey Bart can repeat what he did last year. So there's lots of reasons to say like this 76 win team that could get to 85 victories.
Right.
That puts you in the wild card chase, right?
Absolutely.
Again, they need to avoid those big swoons that they tend to have. And this goes back to the 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 teams, right? I think it was the 12 season, they were the first team to 50 wins. And they did not make the playoffs,
Right.
So it was quite a collapse. So
well, that's a great point too, because when you think about that, and you think about the younger players like Nick Gonzalez in particular, who were saying like the experience just isn't there, right? And so once they start getting that experience, and I think that makes a big difference. But that 2012 team got experience in doing certain things and being in certain games. And it proved to be too much, right? Just like August did last year. Anytime you're a young player, you get to August. That's why they call it the dog days. And because like once you get there, it's like, oh, now like I'm not just here. I have to keep going. And it's difficult. And, it is for every team though. But when you're a team full of young guys, it sometimes, it shows over history that you don't always come out of that very well. And so that experience maybe puts them into a different situation.
All throughout baseball, you see guys that have 15 wins at the All-Star break, and you're like, oh, he's a lock for 20.
Yeah.
And he gets 3 more wins, right? There's not a lot of 20-game winners, especially now. Willie Stargell was on pace to break the home run record, I think, 2 years in a row. He had 35 home runs at the All-Star break. He finished with 48. 48 led the league, a great number, but that was 13 home runs in the last 2. You know what I'm saying? He didn't maintain his pace. Players wear down in the second half of the season. It happens all across the sport. It happens with all the teams.
Unless you want to bring steroids obviously. Back.
Yeah, exactly.
Then they don't wear down.
Then they don't wear down, right? And exactly, that's the magic.
We don't want to do that.
McGwire,
we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Mark McGwire couldn't stay on the field.
Yeah, we don't want to.
And never missed a game.
That's
again,
yeah. That's the one thing that like I think is kind of funny about that, because we're like, well, Mark McGwire was huge. Like he was huge before steroids. He just couldn't
hit
last.
49 home runs as a skinny rookie, but he's back.
Oh, he was not skinny though. He was
skinnier than he was.
Yeah, right? But he was always a big dude. And then it was like, well, I'm taking steroids to stay healthy. That was the motivation. Right.
He was taking steroids to stay on the field. It was for recovery, and so yeah.
There are side effects. Yes. These muscles are a side effect of trying to stay healthy.
But man.
So yeah, Dave White says just to move on here. Dave White says going into this year over last year, they're improved at catcher, first base, second base, and center field. I don't think I could argue with any of those. I think that they are improved in all of those areas, especially given the experience that you got from Nick Gonzalez last year and the way that he came up and continued hitting well. Like I said, you're gonna take your lumps as a young player, and he certainly did. I think he ended with like an 86 OPS plus or something like that. But there was after he came off the IL the one time, it was like how many weeks between home runs for him. And so, there's some of that plays into that too. And there was some struggle there coming out of that. And so get him to 10 home runs, and it's 10 to 12 home runs, and he's a different player in a sense. So yeah, no, I think that's there. And I think there is a lot of things to be positive about when you're looking into this year, knowing experience, knowing like understanding that, that there were games that we threw away, that it wasn't a lack of talent. It was maybe a lack of discipline or fundamentals. You know what I'm saying? Most of those, we were saying most of those were pitching. So if Colin Holderman just avoids getting super sick and going to the hospital, maybe he'll last the whole year. If David
Bednar injury better,
if he goes on the IL at the beginning, yes, exactly.
Right.
So I think there are some things there.
And if we just clean up the base running, if we could could not lead the league in having guys thrown out at second base and fundamentally when you have guys in scoring position with no outs.
What's funny is
I don't care if you small ball it or whatever, but get those runs in.
What's funny is the Yankees had those same problems last year, but the star-studded lineup was still good enough with all those problems, and that's what you don't have, right? So it's fair to say you don't have the players, but what we're saying is you don't have the players to overcome those types of mistakes, but you could still be a good team with these players if you can eliminate those types of mistakes.
No, Yankee. I remember listening to some of the Yankee broadcasts, and their fans were outraged about how fundamentally unsound that team was. But they had Judge and Soto and Stanton had his hot streaks, and so you can superior talent can help you overcome those mistakes. When the Pirates make those mistakes, it costs you a game because we don't have a guy hitting 48 home runs or 52 home runs coming up to clean it up.
Right.
So. Right. It's why the Pirates have to win in the margins, right? We're not going to out-talent anybody. But so we need, and that's what's the frustrating part. We make more mistakes than the other teams in a game. And in every phase, right? We don't execute a pitch. We don't execute a hit and run. We don't execute a bunt. We don't throw to the cutoff man. We don't throw to the right base. We overrun. We overslide second base on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So just a lot of frustrating stuff. Right. Like this team should be working on fundamentals throughout the season, harder than any other team. Right. I mean, as hard as teams like Tampa Bay and these other teams that can't say, all right, we're just going to go get Juan Soto and that'll clean up that problem. No. So, Skenes is right. And I'm glad that he's saying it. And I hope that he says it enough that, and I don't just mean holding players accountable, but coaching staff. Hey, man, we're making a lot of fundamental mistakes.
Right.
That yes, the players are responsible, but let's, coach us tough, coach us hard. And, get us out there for early infield practice, whatever it takes, I thought
that was one of the interesting things that I heard from Terry Francona when he took that job and he started talking and about how he's going to coach that team. And he talked about how players like to be coached. They like to be challenged. And, I thought that was so different from some of the players coaches who might, and Derek Shelton falls under that. And I think there's value there. I don't think that it's all crazy. I think that the players that play for the Pirates like Derek Shelton, but you have to be careful not to just go so far. Once they like you, you have the respect to then challenge them. So I think that's the second step that he still needs to make is, hey, I got these guys. They know I have their back. And now I need to challenge them because you have to do the first in order to get the response in the second. And I think that as far as Derek Shelton, if he's going to take a step as a manager, that's the avenue that he needs to be in. It's exactly what you're saying. And hopefully Paul Skenes can be part of a voice that makes that happen. The other thing that he said, and I know that Steel City DW kind of popped it in here as we'll close this thing out. All Paul Skenes. I mean, kind of just reacting to the things that he said, but it's interesting. There's more that Jake and I will get into on Thursday and everything, but it said Steel City DW said that interview with Skenes about signing him to a long-term deal was uncomfortable. Such a loaded question. So I actually didn't feel like it was uncomfortable other than the fact it's wow, you're really going to ask him that right now? I thought the question was more uncomfortable than the answer. What do you want him to say other than absolutely nothing? Like the only answer you can expect is we haven't talked about that yet.
Right. I mean, and his MO, right? He's not going to throw out a bunch of incendiary type stuff.
Oh my gosh, imagine.
He's right. He's a leader. I mean, again, he's a team guy. He is not going to speak ill of the organization. And we don't know what's going on. We don't know if they've been negotiating every day. Again, there's no answer to that question until there's announce of an extension, right? There's just no, you're right. So he does the best thing. So there's no follow up to it. I'm not even thinking about that right now. I'm preparing for the season. Boom. There you go. And of course he's not going to say, yeah, this team hasn't really signed pitchers long term, and they don't have them. I mean, of course he'll be getting questions every day for the rest of his career in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I don't expect that they should be talking to him right now. They should be talking about 350, 400 million for 10, they should, and they would get their money back and it would be worth it, blah, blah, blah. But I don't expect that from the Pirates, but you never know. I'm certainly not going to give up hope until they trade him or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, Paul Skenes handled that perfectly. I didn't think it was uncomfortable at all. I think he handled it like a seasoned pro, like he handles everything.
Yeah, just for clarification for the
question.
Yeah, for the audio listeners, Steel City DW does conditionalize this, saying that's what he meant about it being uncomfortable. So he's on the same page here. I just thought, like, ask him if he'd be willing. Then it's like a typical question. You give the guy, throw the guy a softball and let him say, "Yeah, absolutely." And then we're done. I'd love to be here for a long time.
Right.
Absolutely, the softball. But then the fact that the question was, yeah, the fact that the question was, what will it take? Like, he's not going to answer that. So, but the funny thing about it was that there were a lot of comments like, "Oh, he's gone. He's traded after this year." Like, it's
we have a large portion or a loud minority maybe who, no matter, who's already saying he's going to be a Dodger or a Yankee, and so I mean that's a default setting for a large part, especially the social media, fans. Right?
It's automated. They didn't even actually do that themselves. They have a
their own AI does it, right?
It'd be like, anytime you see this, just say he's gone with crying face, and then we're good. Right. That way we got our bases covered. But yeah,
sell the team, Bob.
Sell the team, Bob. That's it. Let's just default to all those things. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I opted not to go to Pirates Fest. I was planning on it, and I opted not to go this year. Mostly weather related was my decision. We had some things going on here that I was planning on initially missing to go, and then I opted into going instead, and staying here and going with my wife to those things. And so I ended up sticking around, and I saw some of the weather made me feel good about that. That decision.
But I never really thought about it this year. I've never been, so I definitely want to go at least once.
Sure.
I'm going to spring training for the first time this year.
Let's go.
So, I'm excited. I'm much more excited about that. The weather will be better.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to say the optimism will be high, but it always is for me. I'm optimistic at the start of every season. It will be. When things could go right. It could happen.
Yeah, it absolutely will be, because it's once you get down and you start playing games and you see the guys come in and you see them start doing their thing. I think there's always optimism. I think that just like the baseball fan in you, if you are a baseball fan and not just a sports fan who watches some baseball, if you're a baseball fan, that whenever spring training comes around, there's just something that gets you going regardless. There were years that I knew we were going to stink, and I was like, yes, absolutely. I'm pumped now because the potential was just that they were going to be baseball on to watch. And so there's always excitement in spring training.
I mean, come on. We've got Paul Skenes.
Yeah.
Right there. Right there is something to look forward to at least once a week. I am really excited about seeing Mike Burrows, Braxton Ashcroft,
Bubba Chandler,
Thomas Harrington, all of this stuff. I want to see if Jared Jones can take a step forward. I want to see if Mitch Keller could, there's so much stuff to pay attention to. I want to see Horowitz. I want to see what Nick Gonzalez says. I want to see what a healthy and confident O'Neal Cruz does in center field. Yeah. I'm intrigued by Cook. If he just is a platoon player that plays great D in multiple positions. So there's much to be at least interested in. You don't have to necessarily be optimistic, but you can be interested in what's going on.
Oh yeah. It is.
So yeah, there's a good safety tip from our Pirate Queen Banshee there, our local royalty. Pay attention. She knows of what she speaks.
Sunscreen.
She's got flawless skin, so she's adhering her own rules.
Sunscreen during the day, bug spray in the evening. So yeah, Jake and I were talking about it the other day, and basically I was like, it hits 75, and you're thinking you're going to melt. That might not be the case for you because you're not up here in this negative degree.
No.
We're going to get the next.
I'm in Jacksonville,
so the weather's not going to kill you the same, or not kill you. I mean, I actually like it. I enjoy it, but yeah. But either way, yeah. So
yeah, I went. I think I went. I had plans to go in '95, and then they went on strike, and I didn't get to go. It's like, and I never made a chance back. But I'm going this year with the rest of the NS9 crew, and we should have a lot of fun. I've already challenged Noah Hiles and Alex Stump to some Papa Shot. I don't know if you saw that dreadful display they put on. I will play them right-handed, my strong hand. I will play them left-handed. I'm 60 years old. I have not played Papa Shot at least in 20 years, and I'm going to crush them. It's out there, fellas.
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, we are out of time. Actually, we're past our hour. Doug, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. I always love this. I'm glad. Anytime Jake's not available, please feel free to call. I look forward to doing it. The chat was great. It's always great to talk Pirate baseball with you. So
yeah,
anytime. Thank you. Don't thank you. I'm grateful that you let me come on.
You're the man, Doug. You're the man. I always appreciate it too. And we were on oh my gosh, The Point. We were on The Point together, and that was kind of like, dang, we gotta get you back on. So glad it was this soon.
Done that twice,
we'll do it again.
So
that's right.
Exactly.
All right, thanks. And guys, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We'll be back here Thursday night for another one. Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks.